Did the Dallas Cowboys make the right decision extending Terence Steele? All that and more this episode of the Locked On Cowboys podcast.
You are Locked On Cowboys, your
Locked
daily Dallas Cowboys podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast
Locked
Network, your
On.
team every day.
On. Locked on. Locked on Cowboys.
Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. I am your host, Marcus Mosher. You can follow me on Twitter at Marcus_Mosher. Joining me today, as always, is Landon McCool. You can check him out on Twitter at McCoolBCB. Landon, we got a bunch of news to talk about this week for the Cowboys. It never fails. They always give us a ton of content. But we got a game to talk about for Sunday against the Giants. But before we even get there, the Dallas Cowboys have agreed to a 5-year extension with right tackle Terence Steele, worth up to, I think I saw the number was $91 million, $50 million guaranteed. What was your initial reaction when you heard about the signing?
I could not stop thinking about how this felt like the most well-earned contract that the Cowboys have had in a long time. I mean, I think in the sense that Terence Steele has worked as hard as anyone in recent memory to, get him to a place where he deserves a contract like this, to get him back healthy from a brutal injury last season. When I think of Terence Steele, I think of a guy that is just like the most incredibly hard worker on the team. So I think, wow, how deserving. I'm super glad of if anyone is going to get this bag. You feel like a guy that was an undrafted free agent thrown into the fire his rookie season, for him to come to where he is now and where he's considered to be now, he's come a really long way, and he's certainly earned all that money.
Yeah, he's earned it. I mean, I think one of the reasons why the Cowboys were so comfortable giving him this extension and this much guaranteed money is because of, first of all, the kind of worker he is. Even before the ACL injury, he was routinely one of the Cowboys' hardest workers. Mike McCarthy praised his attitude, before. So I think, again, that's one of the biggest reasons why. And I think they feel like he's an ascending player even after the injury. However, we talked about a potential Terence Steele extension, was that a week ago, 2 weeks ago? And you and I were kind of projecting on how much we thought he'd make. I thought he would get like around 13 million. You hit it almost dead on, right? Like 17 and a half million. I do wonder if this is a little premature, right? Because 2020 really struggled. 2021 got better. 22 having the best year of his career. Now an ACL injury. I thought they had this really cheap contract that they could have continued just to play off of and see what he looked like this year. But it's clear the Cowboys view him as a long-term high-end starter at right tackle.
Yeah, and I think the other thing too is that they had an opportunity to kind of continue to make it reasonably cheap if they feel like this is an ascending player. And look, I think that what we've seen is that, let's not make it out to be like Terence Steele was some scrappy, unathletic guy who's worked hard and that's why he's on. I mean, he is physically gifted. Like, he has incredible length and that sort of thing. The reason he got undrafted was simply a skill set issue, not based on a lack of ball of clay to be there, if to use that sort of phrase. I think that what we've seen is an ascending player with a body type that looks like he could be making his way towards the elite of offensive tackles. And I think they took a gamble again a little bit early on him to try to save some money on the back end of potentially of this deal on a guy that I think you said it, right? Like maybe you don't make this sort of gamble on a guy that you are kind of so as a person or so as a worker. yeah, fair, right? But the difference is that this guy is like if there's an elite trait that he has, it's his hard working. I mean, he built himself up to where he was, and then he brought himself back from an ACL injury. I have no doubts that he'll continue to grow and get better. I mean, listen, this clearly feels like Duke Mayweather's favorite player. And that if that doesn't indicate exactly how hard a worker this guy is, this is the kind of guy that you feel better about taking a chance on his upside because that he's going to squeeze the juice out of every opportunity he has. He's going to get every ounce of potential kind of realized out of him.
The other thing, if I had to counter my own counter or my own point, which I do a lot, a 5-year deal gives the Cowboys a ton of flexibility here. So I actually just saw the numbers from Todd Archer.
Yep.
The cap number this year has not changed at all. So they still have a lot of cap space, quote unquote, cap space this year. To me, this looks like a contract that's going to get like restructured, and the money's going to move around a lot so that they can get some other deals done, whether it's the Dak Prescott deal, the CeeDee Lamb deal, the Micah Parsons down the road a little bit. Having that extra, that 5th year just gives the Cowboys so much flexibility here. And when you get to the end of that deal, there's no money guaranteed, I believe, in the last 3 years of the deal. The base salaries are like $16 million. So we get to 2027, 2028. An average right tackle is going to be making $22-23 million a year. So that's one of the advantages the Cowboys have here. I think they gave up a little bit more guaranteed money than I was anticipating in exchange for an extra 5th year that just gives them more roster flexibility.
Yeah, I actually was on one of the Locked On shows earlier, kind of talking about this contract, and one of the things I said was, it's a classic Cowboys 5-year deal, right? And the Cowboys are going to get the flexibility they want out of those 5-year deals. They just understand how to do that. So it feels like a win-win. I think some people on the outside may view it as an overpay, but I think anyone who's watched his game day in, day out the last year when he's been healthy, there was a point when him and Zach Martin were the best run blocking duo in all of football. Yeah. And the one play that the Cowboys truly were hanging their hat on throughout the middle part back into the season was duo to his side. So I think that he has well earned this contract, and I think it's a good deal for the Cowboys that will only get better as the years go on.
Yeah, there's not much you can say here. You look at the right tackle market, go to overthecap.com, look at some of the other names that are right in that $16 to $18 million range, and that's the same type of caliber of player that Terence Steele is. Whether it's who are some of the ones, Titus Howard was in there, Mike McGlinchey, who Mike Parsons threw 15 feet up in the air in the playoff game. Like, that's just what these guys get paid, and I don't think the Cowboys wanted to wait any longer. What you've seen from them this offseason is they want to try to get done every contract that expires in 2024, right? So they have the franchise tag available. They can't use it on CeeDee Lamb, they can't use it on Dak Prescott. They have the 5th year option for CeeDee Lamb. So they're going to have some options going into next offseason now that they've locked up their right tackle.
Yeah. They're trying to position all the chess pieces on the board to get ready for the Micah Parsons negotiation, which is, they're going to have to pay him the most money of any defensive player in history. So,
and to me, it also looks like they're really trying to find a way to maximize this window, 2023, 2024, because I'm going to keep mentioning it. They have almost every player that you want on this roster under contract for the 2024 season with Parsons, CeeDee Lamb, Dak, all your safeties outside of J-Ron Kearse. Brandon Cooks, I think Brandon Cooks got a new deal this offseason that locks him up. Like, you're pretty much set. Zach Martin got some more money. Like, it's this year, next year. Like that. I think that's what the way the Cowboys are viewing it now. Like, this is your window.
Yep. Window's right open. And after that, after 2024, 2025, before the 2025 season, you're going to have some decisions to make. Because I think if things, which is the way it should be set up. Put the pressure on these next 2 years. This is your window. We readjust and see how things are after 2024 season.
And if you fall short this year or next year and you're not able to crack an NFC championship game and you're not able to make a Super Bowl, you probably need to start making some changes anyways. You have the flexibility to do that. Landon, let's talk about some other offensive line news out of Dallas this morning, which makes me a little bit nervous as we get ready for the Giants. We will discuss that next. This episode is brought to you by Underdog. Football season kicks off this Thursday, and there is no better way to get in on the action than with Underdog's fantasy and their picking game. Just pick 2 to 5 players, select whether they're going to go higher or lower on one of their stats, then do what you usually do on kickoff night. Just watch the game, relax, enjoy yourself. You can win up to 20 times your money in a single game by going 5 for 5. It's a fantasy game, but you can win real money. It's legal in over 30 states. And I got to tell you, it is so much fun. If you want to build your dream team today, head over to their easy-to-use mobile app or use the website underdogfantasy.com. And when you sign up with promo code Locked On, not only will Underdog double your first deposit up to $100, but they will also have a pick'em special that is live right now in their lobby. The deal is it's Patrick Mahomes to go over 1 passing yard for your pick to be correct. Remember, that is Underdog Fantasy. Sign up with promo code Locked On and use the link in the description, or you can scan the QR code that's on your screen right now if you're watching us on YouTube. Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast. We want to thank you for making us your first listen every day. The Locked On Ultimate NFL Season Preview is here. The 7-episode extravaganza brings opinions, analysis, and plenty of debate from all 32 of our Locked On NFL hosts, with added insights from our national experts. It's a can't-miss series before the season kicks off. Catch every single episode on Locked On NFL on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Landon, let's talk about some news from Monday's practice. Cowboys left guard Tyler Smith tweaked his hamstring a little bit, had to leave practice, did not return. We got a report from Michael Gelkin and from Todd Archer that the Cowboys believe it's a minor hamstring injury. How concerned are you about his status going into week 1?
Well, I think it's more that we all need to start to transition to in-season injury resilience, right? Because this is going to start happening, right? Like, this is different than training camp where we over-examine all the tweaks and over concern ourselves with a lot of the kind of minor stuff. When it comes into in season, like, it becomes battle time, and they're gonna play through this. So I have concerns in the sense that I hope it's not affecting his play, but he's gonna play. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's how I feel about it. Is that I hope that they can kind of nurse it so it's not bothering him too much. But these are the kind of things that guys play through, right? And the things that during training camp, during OTAs, we fret over. We don't want them to miss practice time, but in regular season, which is where we are now, officially starting today, we keep an eye on these things, but we have to realize that this is the kind of stuff that guys are going to have to just kind of gut through.
The good news is that this happened on Monday and not Wednesday or Thursday. The Cowboys are off for practice tomorrow, so at least it gives you another day or two to get ready. I imagine he's probably not going to practice on Wednesday. Maybe you'll see him ramp up a little bit on Thursday and Friday. But I think you nailed it. Like, he's going to play. We'll see how much this affects him. I do think for offensive linemen, a hamstring injury isn't quite as devastating as it is for like a cornerback or a receiver or a running back. But it is something that I'm going to watch. And if this limits him at all, it could be bad for the Cowboys offensive line because, man, that Giants defensive line with Dexter Lawrence, Leonard Williams, now they have Kayvon Thibodeau, like, they are loaded up front, and you really need your interior offensive line to be stout against the Giants.
Yeah, and especially, if you want to have success in the run game, the Giants, despite all that extra heft, and we'll talk about the matchups later, but despite all that extra heft, the defensive line, they were not good against the run last year. So you hope that Tyler Smith would kind of help continue that trend for the Giants going into this first game. So you certainly are relying on him. And simply just because he is also your backup left tackle option as well. So, he's not one of these guys that you want facing a series of injuries early through the season.
I so badly want the Cowboys to have their starting offensive line at full strength for like one game, just to see what it looks like.
Snap, right? Honestly, at this point, right? Like, goodness gracious.
It's I don't know. It's frustrating that it seems like you can't get all 5 on the field at the same time, but that's just kind of the nature of the NFL, right? It's really hard to keep all 5 of those guys healthy. Let's say Tyler Smith can't go, or that he starts playing in this game and it's clearly he's just not 100%. Who do you think would fill in at left guard?
That's a good question. I wonder, we just haven't gotten anything from Adoga, where is he? I guess he's healthy. He's on the team. I'm assuming he practiced today, but I don't even know how much I saw of him on the left side recently. So is he an option? Otherwise, the guy that the 2 guys that immediately come to mind are Awesome Richards or TJ Bass. And, I went back and listened to TJ Bass interview, and I think we don't need to worry as much about his playing on the left side. It sounds like he's actually comfortable playing left guard. He played left guard at community college before he was
in left
at
tackle
Oregon.
community college.
He
Left
played
tackle at
tackle
Oregon.
At Oregon as well. Yeah. So he has no concerns about playing on the left side. So if we needed TJ Bass to be in there, maybe he's your backup left guard. That's where things get interesting. That's where we don't really know exactly how the depth chart works at that point, right? Is it Austin Richards that goes in, or is it TJ Bass? So
Who do you want it to be?
I kind of think I want it to be TJ Bass, simply because I think he's got a little bit more heft to him, a little bit more strength, especially against that Giants front.
That's exactly what I was going to say. I want the little bit stronger player in this game, especially at guard, right? I think Austin Richards is better at tackle, where he can show off his athleticism a little bit more, but there's some big boys in there for the Giants at defensive tackle.
Sure. Yeah, and you also, I think you're not as, Dexter Lawrence is explosive, so you got to be careful. But you're not as concerned about getting beat too much. Hopefully inside, you can kind of squeeze things a little bit and pass pro, maybe watch your splits. So yeah, I just think that I think it's probably TJ Bass. I wouldn't be shocked if it was Austin Richards though. But I think obviously the hope here is that you don't need to even go to this plan, and that you just have Smith out there. What's interesting is actually who is going to be in this conversation, who's actually going to be active on the roster. As far as are both Austin Richards and TJ Bass,
and
Udoga all scheduled to be game day roster active players. I
probably
don't know.
right.
So, at this point, they probably would be right.
I think it's pretty common to keep 8 offensive linemen active. I know sometimes teams like to stretch it out to 7 or so, but I think with Tyron Smith's injury history, with Terence Steele coming off an ACL injury, with with Tyler Smith now having a hamstring injury, it's probably the safe bet to just keep 8 active and maybe go 1 short at wide receiver this week, or 1 shorter at corner.
You would keep 8 active. You still don't have a guy who can snap the football if Tyler Biotis gets hurt. So you might have to go
Zach
9.
Martin that can do it.
Honestly, it's complicated, right? Because you almost feel like TJ Bass may be the guy that's the odd man out because you need somebody who can snap the ball, being your swing interior guy. So it'll be interesting to see the status of Tyler Smith as the week goes on, because I think this changes the angles depending on what percentage of health he has by the end of the week.
The Cowboys do have somebody who can snap the football, but he's like 250 pounds and he's your long snapper. But I don't think you want to do that.
I don't think that's what an option.
Which is kind of funny that you can't even have those guys be an emergency center. But there's so much to being a center other than just snapping the ball.
Yeah, there's a lot more. That's why those guys are underappreciated, right? Is like if it was just about snapping the ball correctly and getting in somebody's way, you just use your long snap.
Yeah, there you go. Let's talk about some other players who could be in or out for Sunday's game against the Giants. We will get to that next. This episode is brought to you by eBay. Our partners at eBay Motors have teamed up with Locked On Fantasy Football host Vinny Iyer to bring you some of the best fantasy picks each week, all season long. Whether you're prepping for a draft or you're scouting the waiver wire, every week we're going to provide you the players that are guaranteed to fit on your roster. So with draft prep underway for the upcoming season, let's see who Vinny has picked out for us in this week's eBay's Guaranteed Fit Fantasy Picks of the Week. This time, it's Khalil Herbert of the Chicago Bears. If you need an undervalued running back to help give your fantasy football team a smoother ride into 2023, then you better be ready to draft Bears speedster Khalil Herbert. He's clearly the most explosive back to play off of Justin Fields as a runner and a receiver, and the remix committee, including Deontay Foreman and rookie Roshan Johnson, look for Herbert to get the most high leverage touches, working mostly with Johnson in a favorable run-heavy offense. Vinny Iyer from Locked On Fantasy Football is going to help you win your fantasy championship, and eBay Motors knows that a championship team is about each player being a perfect fit. The same is true for your vehicle. With eBay Guaranteed Fit and over 122 million parts and accessories for your vehicle right at your fingertips, you can make sure that your ride stays running smoothly. Air filters, brakes, batteries, taillights, alternators, shocks, struts, you name it, eBay Motors has it, and they'll make sure it's the right fit for your car, because eBay Guaranteed Fit helps you understand exactly what part you need for your vehicle. the first time. So go forth, switch gears, crank the AC, and say goodbye to sweating if your ride needs a little fixing up, because now you know you'll always be set up for success from the get-go. With eBay Guaranteed Fit, everything your vehicle is calling for is just a click away. For the parts and accessories that fit your vehicle, just look for the green check. Get the right parts, the right fit, and the right prices at ebaymotors.com, and let's ride. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. Welcome back here to the Locked On Cowboys podcast. Landon, we've got some injury updates that I want to run through really quickly. Donovan Wilson back on the field working with the resistance bands, not doing anything in practice. Mike McCarthy said he did have a good workout this weekend. What do you think his status will be for week 1?
Yeah, they're clearly trying to target week 1. I mean, that's basically been the plan since. I mean, he got hurt on the very beginning of the very first practice.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken. So I feel like they've been targeting week 1 this whole time, and kind of slow playing, or at least targeting towards that. So I think based on that, and based on the fact that he's seemingly kind of ramping up now, it does feel like hopefully they'll get him up and running for this game. But we'll see. I think of all the guys that are on this list, to me, since he's been kind of out the longest with this injury, I feel like he might be the most kind of good to go by the game, if that makes sense, simply because it wasn't a serious injury, but it wasn't quite minor, but he's had like a very gradual ramp,
Yeah.
So I do feel like they've been able to kind of slow play this in a way that's good for his recovery, and that he should be better for week 1.
I just won't be surprised if he's one of the guys that is inactive in week 1, right? Maybe they'll try to get him practicing Thursday, Friday, because we saw this last year. Like, they like to give these players a full week of practice before they put you out on the field. Like, they were very cautious to make sure that they keep these guys healthy by December. So while I'm not ruling Donovan Wilson out at all, I just won't be surprised if, hey, this week is all resistance training. And then next week, if you can practice on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, you'll be good to go. Maybe he doesn't even travel with the team this week against the Giants. They keep him at home, get him ready for week 2 against the Packers.
Yeah, I would say that that could be a possibility, especially if he doesn't practice tomorrow. Then I would say it's that you're likely all right. It'll be interesting to see. I think they have kind of slow played him, so I'm hoping that this was just all part of the planned ramp up, and that they are getting him ready for full speed padded practice on, was it usually Wednesday or
Thursday?
Wednesday.
Yeah.
So specifically, if he's not in the walkthrough tomorrow, and then definitely if he's not in pads on Wednesday, that I would say he would be out. But I'm still hopeful.
All right, we should mention Sam Williams, who left last Thursday's practice with a quote unquote turf toe that was minor. I don't know how turf toe can be a minor injury, but he did not practice on Monday. He was in street clothes. Starting to get a little bit concerned about his availability for week 1.
Yeah, I am a little concerned about Sam Williams. I mean, that's the one that I think of these injuries as far as could potentially miss the first week. Sam is at the top of the list. The fact that he wasn't in practice at all in street clothes, it could just simply be that they would like to get him off the foot, and just kind of give it. It's just about, he doesn't need rehab. It just needs to be off of it for a little while, which could make sense. And if that's the case, maybe he does play. Maybe he gets back into practice Wednesday and he's fine. But I would say that if we were power ranking these folks based on my concern, he's at the top of the list right now.
I just wish Jerry Jones could call up Roger Goodell and be like, hey, we'll give him a 1-game suspension this year rather than next year. Is that okay with you?
Let's just go ahead. Let's just call it a 1 game for right now.
We'll do it right now.
That's great.
We'll see. I think he's another one where we'll see how his status is on Wednesday and Thursday. Cowboys probably are trying to keep him off the field and off the turf as much as possible. A couple other ones really quickly. Dorrance Armstrong back at practice. Nahshon Wright out of the boot, which is good news. Was in a jersey actually on Monday. He's on the injured reserve list, which means he can't come back until week 5. But it does feel like once he's eligible to return, Nahshon Wright should be ready to practice and play if the Cowboys need him.
Yeah, it looks good. You know, if he's already out and kind of out of the boot and moving around at this point, that's a good sign that, you know, by the time that his allotted time is up, that he'll be ready to just kind of step right back into practice and get back into the swing of things without too much, you know, delay after that. So, you know, I think for the most part with Wright, to be honest, like if all things being equal, he probably would have been ready to play next week or the week after that. But because of all the roster mechanisms that are required and trying to get everyone on the roster, IR was obviously the best choice for him timeline-wise. They probably don't need him before he comes back in the IR. That's why he's going to get a couple extra weeks to kind of get over this while he's waiting for his time to return.
You know it's football season when Landon and I are talking about injuries and how quickly these guys are going to be able to come back on the field and Wednesday practice and what to look out for on Friday practice. It's a good time.
We're back, baby. We're back, baby. We're back.
We are officially back. That is it for today's show. We want to thank you for making Locked On Cowboys your first listen every day. And every day, we're going to have a busy show this week. Landon and I are going to answer your Twitter questions. We'll probably do that tomorrow. Let's answer Twitter questions tomorrow.
Let's do that. Yeah.
We've got a crossover show with Patricia Trina of Locked On Giants coming later this week. I can't wait. Then Landon, you and I are going to preview this Cowboy Giants game on Friday. So make sure you're downloading the podcast wherever you get your podcasts. We are free and available on all platforms. Go check out the show on YouTube. Go follow Landon on Twitter at McCoolBCB. I'm at Marcus _Mosier. And we'll see you right back here tomorrow.